Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Wetangula is finished. UDA party has decided to field a candidate in the upcoming Bungoma by-elections, and it's a strong indication, a signal that is the end of Moses Wetangula's Ford Kenya party. After Wetangula was in the last general election, Wetangula was the only elected senator under Ford Kenya before he was nominated, or rather he was elected as the Speaker of the National Assembly. And so now you're only remaining with a governor, that is Governor Lusaka. And after he was elected the Speaker, the Senate post in Bungoma remained vacant. Wetangula fronted a long-term PA, personal assistant, Wafula Wakoli, to vie for the seat under Ford Kenya. And that was in a very clear understanding that in the spirit of brotherhood under Kenya Kwanza, UDA was not going to field a candidate. Wetangula's party was going to battle it out with any other Azimio affiliated party, or rather the independent candidates. Because initially, that post was actually belonging to the Ford Kenya party. This reminds us of what the analysts and we analysts who insisted that even when William Ruto was making a merger with Mudavadi and Wetangula, that merger was honestly not pegged on the need for him to strengthen the other parties. But the bigger goal was to kill the small parties so that UDA would actually push to become the one party. And I have seen reports where UDA luminaries are actually bragging out there that in 2027 there will only be one party, and that will be the UDA party. So today, the head of elections at UDA, Anthony Maura, has handed over certificate and UDA ticket to former Bumula MP Moses Mwambu Mabonga. Moses Mwambu Mabonga was the former MP of Bumula before he was defeated in the last general election by Jack Wamboka of the DAPK. So he unsuccessfully vied in the just concluded general election as an MP in Bumula and failed. So I have seen the way Bungoma, and I want to tell you why Moses Wetangula's home is being raided successfully. Before the last election, Mwambu Mabonga, Sirisa MP John Waluke, Webuye West MP Dan Wanyama, Mount Elgon Lomeka Fred Kapondi, and Didymus Baraza Kimilili were the founders of the UDA chapter in Kakamega, in Bungoma. So they founded the UDA, and by the time Moses Wetangula was crossing over to join Kenya Kwanza, the UDA pact, he actually found that already the UDA politicians were actually grounded. And by that virtue, the UDA politicians became very strong, and they won against the Ford Kenya politicians, the Ford Kenya aspirants. So that's why even in Bungoma, Moses Wetangula, apart from the governor and the Senate, the MP seats, that party performed dismally. That is the Ford Kenya party. It's a party that has been so much grounded in that area, in that area. So what do you think, by the way, if you ask me, UDA party, they have known very well that Moses Wetangula and his brother Musalia Mudavadi have been clipped by a constitutional requirement that when you work for government as a civil servant, you don't hold a party position. And we are waiting to see whether Moses Wetangula will go to campaign for Wafula Wakoli in Bungoma, or it will just be left out for them to battle it out. So UDA party is actually making an effort to throw themselves in that by-election to test the weight. They want to test the strength of the party because a general perception is that the UDA euphoria is going down. The party ideology of Kazi ni Kazi was directly pegged on the hustler movement. So when you see UDA, you are actually seeing hustler. And when now the hustler issues are not fully addressed by just that virtue, the party is a bit suppressed. And I can tell you that UDA is actually going to participate in that election for two reasons. The number one reason is to know whether they have the following in the area. That is the number one reason why they gain the following. Number two, they want to test the reception of Kenya Kwanza government amongst the people. I want to reset that. And number three, that by-election allows them to have a contest with Azimio, and through that contest, they can find an opportunity to make political statements. The political statements is just a strategy or a fodder to divert the attention from the mainstream issues. But even as that remains the target, there is really a possibility scenarios that are going to play out. But from where I'm seated, this is occasioning the death of Ford Kenya Party. Remember, Ford Kenya is facing a hurdle known as DAPK. DAPK is a strong party there, and now Eugene Wamalwa is out of government, and it seems to be strengthening that DAPK party and rooting it at the community level because it seems Eugene Wamalwa wants to vie for governor in Trans Nzoia in the next general election. So it's going to be a very strong, grounded party. Now, for the Kenya candidate, if they go to the ballot for that Bungoma Senate by election with UDA candidate, then it will give a very strong leeway for DAPK or any other Azimio affiliated candidate to pass in between. This will be very easy. By the way, that seat was remaining in Ford Kenya because of Moses Wetangula. And now if you have Ford Kenya this side and UDA also on the ballot, they are facing themselves, then a strong candidate from DAPK. And in fact, if you ask me, it is time for Mukisa Kitui to rush to Bungoma and take over from Moses Wetangula. It's time for Mukisa Kitui to rush and take that seat, because that contest will give a compromise candidate an easy way to win. And clearly, that is going to serve the interest of William Ruto to kick out Wetangula. One way of kicking out Wetangula is either that seat going to UDA or going to another party apart from Ford Kenya. And why do you think Ford Kenya William Ruto will be comfortable to neutralize Ford Kenya? Because he has a bigger plan of forming one political party, or rather political party, ahead of 2027 general election. So with Ford Kenya not even having a single senator, what will stop them from folding that party and joining the UDA? But I tell you, that will be the end of Wetangula. Because if Wetangula is supposed to get to serve the speaker for another term, or rather even to think of so, then he is at the mercies of President William Samoei Ruto. And I'm saying that it's going to be very critical because Ford Kenya is lacking campaign machinery. ANC, Moses Wetangula, Musalim Devadi, who is also a very strong leader from the region, is now the cabinet secretary, prime cabinet secretary. That only means that also he has relinquished his position as the party leader of ANC, and so he might not engage into an early campaign. Now, that also is the case with Wetangula. And Mudavadi will most likely keep off Bungoma by elections because William Ruto will not want them to show indications or other presidential ambitions in future. Any attempt by Mudavadi or ANC party to wrestle that seat from either Ford Kenya or UDA will be seen as an internal competition to topple William Samoei Ruto. So one man that you will not see in Bungoma by elections very actively will not go there under his own volition, and they may not even field a candidate, is Musalia Mudavadi. But if Mudavadi wanted to assert his authority in Western, I think ANC would have fielded a candidate, because if everyone else is fielding a candidate, why not? They will have sent a candidate there and get the visibility on the ground. Now, William Ruto will easily take control of Bungoma. If you look at the areas, Kimilili, Didmas Baraza is pro-UDA, is on UDA. Dan Wanyama, Webuye West, UDA. This one for Bumula is on DAPK, but it's pro-UDA. I think also Mount Elgon is on UDA. So what stops them? And by the virtue of that, even Bona Halole going to campaign in Bungoma, they are pro-UDA. So UDA will have more visibility on ground compared even to that Ford Kenya. And Ruto wants to make sure that Wetangula, Mudavadi, and his brother, Wetangula, are working under his shadow. And I mentioned that in one of my analysis, people follow the ball. I once said that Mudavadi needed to find ways of not working under William Ruto's shadow. When this is neutralized, number one, it makes the 2027 contest, or rather plan by William Ruto, very easy. When you hold them together, it means he will only try his best to reach out to the other regions, or even now try to reach out to Kalonzo, believing that Mount Kenya will still hold and support him for the second term. So this is a very critical aspect, and this is a clear mission to make sure that Wetangula remains only as a senator. By the way, the truth is, remains only as a speaker. The truth is, when Wetangula serves as a senator, I see him going back to the county, but I don't see him making the mainstream, going to the national politics. That's my bold